everyone. Here we are today, and I'm Elaine,
I'm Jackie.
and we're going to talk to you today about how to ask for what you want. And we're going to go behind the scenes of how to ask for what you want.
Because the first thing we have to know when we ask for what we want is knowing what we want. How do we know what we want? How do we get in touch with that? Because we know as women, we tend to anticipate what others want.
Yeah.
At least Elaine and I do. And that comes into account when we are thinking about what we want. Well, what could make the whole world happy?
Well, we always put ourselves in the other person's shoes and say, oh, well, what would make them happy?
And that would make me happy. I would be happy if you were happy.
Well, that works to a point.
It does to a point. So what do we have to do? Basically, we have to get in touch with ourselves, I think.
Okay, I'm trying to get this thing it's not cooperating.
We're working with multiple technologies
Yes.
here.
So, and it's very slow. It's
very
the
slow.
old technology.
Mhm.
Okay, come on. Okay, well, at any rate, we'll try to deal with that and deal with this at the same time. So, there's one of the themes that comes up when we're in communication, because asking for what you want has to do with communication. And there's always is conversation. And what happens is, do you want to be right, which is ego, or do you want to be kind and compassionate, which is more from your heart? And so that so we get into this head-heart dilemma. And it's so easy to say, oh, well, I deserve this and I should have that. And this person is being whatever. And it's instead of saying, well, okay, forget all this thoughts, all this revenge, all this getting even, all this I deserve. Let's go into my heart and say, what is it I need? What is it my spirit needs? What is it my body needs?
And also, sometimes we get most pulled into this when we're in discussion or argument with someone else. It's when we often find ourselves pulled out of ourselves and reacting instead of responding.
Yeah.
So,
And it's easy just to get into the reaction mode because of conditioning, of fears. A lot of it has to do with how you feel about yourself, whether you're lovable or not, or whether you feel worthy, and that's a big one.
yeah, for instance, arguing with family members over religion or politics.
Yes, that's a
So-
touchy one.
And sometimes you look at the points that you're making, because I know that I tend to see, and Elaine has said she's the same way, we tend to see both sides of an argument. And so, some people call that flip-flopping or wishy-washy. But how do we know how we feel, and is it necessary to argue? Is it necessary to engage in that manner? Because is that truly what we want? Is it not what we want to be heard and to be felt as
And
who we
seen,
are? And
yeah.
probably the other person, if we're in close enough proximity to be having this discussion / argument / whatever with them, they want to be heard too.
Mm-hmm.
So is being right going to get that done? Or is being kind going to accomplish that more? Because especially if we're reacting, I was just listening to a great talk on Shift Network from Helen Palmer, and she was saying that one of the things that she finds exceedingly helpful is to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of your head and let it sink all the way down to the center of your stomach, so you feel it. You're there in yourself. And does time stop when you do that?
Sort
I don't
of.
know. I mean, it must be. It
Yeah,
must in a
sort
way,
of.
and people will wait. They're like, "What? You're not just railing against me. You're not just quick with the comebacks."
Yeah.
So, but do that, and then you say, "Okay, what is my issue with this? Why am I getting all bent out of shape? What is bothering me about this conversation? not what are they doing or what do they need to get straight or what do they need to understand.
Right.
Because a lot of times arguments and exchanges like that aren't really about who's right or wrong. It's about being heard
Mm-hmm.
on both parties. Even someone like Donald Trump wants to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he makes it difficult because it's hard to hear what's really behind him. But I think that's a big issue with knowing what we want, is stepping back from all that energy that gets thrown at us, or that is being thrown at us by whether it's the experts in the media, whether it's family telling us what they know us better than we know ourselves, loved ones, whether it's our spiritual guides or spiritual nemesis. I think that sometimes I get very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I'm saying and what I'm thinking are not really my thoughts. So how can I know what I want out of this exchange if I'm not really present with myself?
Or don't know what you want.
Which
I
if
mean,
I'm,
what,
yeah.
because a lot of times, we'll say things, we'll ask for things,
Mhm.
and then it's like, is that what I really want? It's like recently I've been working through this idea of trying to sell the businesses. And I had an offer for all 3 businesses, and so I had to explore that because, see, I didn't really know. I thought those would be awesome. But then I thought, I kept having these feelings. It's like I was betraying people, and it's like finally I decided, you know what? I got off track. I allowed myself to get off track by what someone else wanted. But what I really wanted was just to sell the businesses that I had set out to sell. And this other was like, let's take it off the table. But it was interesting to work through that process because it's so easy to get caught up with, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And you have to stop. Maybe you have to kind of go down the path a little bit to see. But then you have to stop and say, is this really what I want? If I get this, how am I going to feel? Or how do I feel as I go about getting it? And it's all about listening to our body, and because our body is very talkative.
Especially in that case, I remember you saying that some of the people that were involved in the situation were telling you what was fair or what they had planned.
Right.
And because you listened to them so completely, it pulled you out of yourself,
Right.
and you allowed yourself to forget what you had decided you wanted and needed for yourself. And I think we do that. I think some of us have that in our nature,
Right.
that we listen to others fully, and that boundary gets blurred between what they want, what we want, and too often what they want wins.
Right.
Because we're in that, whether it's an argument, whether it's a business agreement, we let ourselves get pulled out of it, not consciously necessarily, get pulled out of what we've decided is in our comfort zone of what's best for us, and get into what
someone else wants.
someone else wants.
And I guess that's one of the things I really want to impress upon everyone watching is the fact that each person, how do I say this? The quality of what you want is individual. So, and the way you go about it is very individual. So some people may be very bold and dramatic and loud and
Pushy.
and and other people are just quietly observing everything and quietly going about their business and just moving towards a goal, and they don't say much. So it's very individual about how you
How you assert yourself.
how you assert yourself. And this gets down to the question, there's been a lot of talk about power, empowerment, and feminine power and masculine power, and who's dominating who, and all this stuff. And it's like, it's a real question of, Jackie and I were talking about it before we even started this. It's like, what is power? What does it mean to be a powerful woman? And it's like, are you assertive and aggressive and hard and cold and domineering, or are you soft and gentle and caring and, the mother bear? I mean, what are you? What does it mean to be powerful?
And a lot of that, both of us do studies in different things in astrology, numerology, human design, Enneagram, and we know there are different types of people, and we manifest, we show up in different ways.
Mhm.
So if someone is inherently an observer, they sit back and they pay attention and it all goes on in their head, and that's what they're concerned with. When they finally have something to say, it might come out sounding rude or harsh because they aren't worried about what someone's going to think and how someone's going to react to someone else and how somebody's going to, they're not worried about, that's not part of their process to make sure everybody's at ease with what they have to say.
Mhm.
They've observed this, they have something to say, they say it. It's like, oh my God, that was too much. She shouldn't have done it that way. That was rude. And it's like, well, is that a kind of power to be able to say it from who you are?
Right.
Instead
Without
of,
worrying about what other people are going to say or react or.
right, because what
Yeah.
they think of you is their business. It's none of your
Right.
business, really. If you say what you need to say, on the other hand, if,
Well, but it depends on where it's coming from. Because if it's
Mhm.
coming from a place of ego, like I'm trying to inflate myself, I'm important and I know better than you and all that, that's kind of like self-defeating. But if you say this powerful thing that offends people, and it's coming from your heart because it's your truth, then that's different.
but is it perceived differently by the people who are hearing it?
It probably is.
See, and I don't know, because I think that some of the things we were talking about is how when we look at powerful women, sometimes it feels off-putting.
Yeah.
I mean, powerful men are off-putting too, but since
Yeah.
we're women, we're looking at how do we do this in a way that resonates with us?
Right.
How do we
That's
state what
different.
we want? How do we state what we know? How do we state what's important to us without sounding like the B word? And to some people, anytime a woman says what she needs to say,
Right.
without putting
Then she's
the other's feelings
automatically-
first, she's automatically the B word, or she's
Yeah.
automatically pushy
Or
or
a
over
vixen,
the top.
or a witch, or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah.
Lots of uncomplimentary things.
So, but we also, Elaine and I, find ourselves making those same statements about women. And the one woman we were talking about is in a TV series.
Right.
And she's a type who's very thoughtful and very methodical and doesn't really, what we might say, suffer fools kindly.
No.
She just says what's on her mind. This is what you
Yeah.
have to do. This is the way it goes. And she sounds harsh.
Yeah.
But a man doing the same thing, oh, that's just a professor.
Right.
So we,
Yeah.
we're responsible for how if we are cognizant of ourselves, if
Mhm.
we're paying attention, and if we're self-reflective, we ultimately are responsible for how we take what someone has to say.
Mm-hmm.
And often we do misinterpret it, twist it. But
Mhm.
if we take a breath down into our core, just pause, get rid of the emotional reaction that comes up, get rid of the judgments that come up, just surrender to me, not ego me, but my body will tell me when I'm really me, because I'll stop getting all that cortisol rush,
Right.
and say, oh, what they said is right on target. I
Mhm.
don't have to reinterpret
Mm-hmm.
anything about the how.
Or you don't have to react to them, or because I know a lot of people that people will say things. It's just like they're being helpful, and it's like we're making a suggestion. Well, what if you do, this for work or something like that? And they get all huffy and puffy, and it's like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have said that. But but yeah, it's like if you're speaking from a place of truth for yourself, that's genuine, that is from your body truth, your soul, heart and soul truth, it has a different impact. And even though the person that you're saying this to may get all huffy and puffy, after they cool down and they start thinking about it, because a lot of their reaction is just simply conditioning. It's something that they've learned from a very young
Mhm.
age that this is the way you respond to whatever the statement is. And so it makes it to speak up and ask for what you want actually requires a lot of courage and a lot of confidence and a real sense of self.
A sense of presence,
yeah,
self-presence.
and it's like, you know,
Mhm.
saying right here, and that's kind of what we were thinking about. Some of the definition of a powerful woman is one who knows herself and can deal with incoming situations and still remain reasonably centered and grounded, and which is takes practice.
And it takes practice not to judge. It takes practice not
Yes.
to judge ourselves, not to judge others on their, whether it's their physical appearance,
Mhm.
whether it's how they say something, whether it's when they say something, you know, and it's difficult because sometimes we'll be doing something and somebody will, you know, make a suggestion about how we could do it better.
Right.
Instead of just, you know, they don't know
Right.
what the hell they're talking about. I'm doing it. It's like, okay, I'll consider that. Or
Right.
that's an idea.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't say, it doesn't have to be good or bad. That's an idea.
Mhm.
But basically, they want, probably, at their very core, want to be helpful,
Mhm.
want to be heard. So if we can do that instead of just making them feel worthless,
Mhm.
which we don't make them feel worthless,
No.
but you
That's
know,
what it appears
Yeah,
like.
that's what it appears. So I think that
And they will definitely tell you that.
they will, whether it's just by sucking their huffing or whatever, you know, it's so the bottom line is when we know how to look for what we want within,
Yeah. Then we can communicate it.
then we communicate it better, and it may be taken by others differently.
Well, and
Everybody's-
we can't do anything about
We
that.
can't really do anything about that, but we feel better. It feels so good to know, to not go home and go, man, I could have said that differently. Oh, that didn't come out the way I meant it. That, you know,
Right.
because I don't know about you guys, but I think sometimes we
Second guess
perseverate
ourselves.
about all of that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, why couldn't I? And the thing is, if you really say, if you get in touch with yourself, take your time and come out with it, you've done what you can. You've been you. And too often we worry that we haven't been truly us.
Right.
That we've been trying to please other people and we got distracted, and it doesn't make us feel good. We think
Mm-mm.
pleasing other people is going to make us all better and everybody's going to love us, and it makes us feel like
Well,
crap.
maybe for a minute, but
But
then
yeah,
but then we get into resenting, and people ask us, and it's like, snarl, I don't want to do that. You know, well,
Mhm.
yes, I'll do that, and you're growling the whole time. I mean, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's where you need to say, this is, you know, very nicely, this is where you want to speak from your heart.
Mhm.
And, you know, and just say, well, look, this isn't going to work for me right now. And you were
Yeah.
talking about how to ask for what you wanted, like if you want to go to a movie or not.
Ah.
You were talking about that.
Yeah, so often when we, especially with couples or with friends, so you want to go to a movie tonight? It's like, okay, that's only one of the questions behind that question. You're saying, well, I don't know. Well, that's really helpful, right?
Yeah.
And so I find that if I want to do something, I will state what I want to do. I'd like to go see Blade Runner tonight. How about you? I know, I wouldn't mind going to the movies, but I don't like science fiction. I'm not in the mood for science fiction tonight. Okay, what would you rather see? I'm open. You know, that way you have, like, you're already bargaining. You stated what you want. You haven't just said in that vague way of
Right.
asking a question, you know, what do you want? What do you know? It's like, oh, okay, wow. I mean, those questions have so much weight behind them.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we say what we want and then are open for negotiation and
Yeah.
feedback, then we're not hiding anything. It doesn't look like we're being manipulative, because
Well, some people might think that, but
if we just say what we want, then if that's manipulating, then that's pure manipulation. Asking for
Yeah.
what you want and then getting it, that's ideal. I think that's ideal.
well, then speaking of manipulation, there are people who do know how to, how shall I say this nicely?
Push your buttons.
Push it, well, no, they know how to arrange words and arrange sentences and events and color, put their own color on these situations and events to elicit the response they want from you.
So push your buttons, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine.
But the thing is, do they really push our buttons, or do we
Allow
hand
them?
them our button on a silver platter and say,
Yeah.
push it? Yes, you know, if you do this, I will react. Or do we learn, and again, it's very idealized, do we learn to say, that's one of my buttons, let me go down.
Right.
That button doesn't need to be there. It serves no
Right.
purpose. And give them an honest answer, which, not that it's a kudo or it's a coup to have someone thrown for a loop when they think they're pushing our buttons,
Uh-huh.
but to put it on an even playing field.
Right.
To
Or just
say-
even to say, I'm feeling like my buttons are being pushed. I mean,
Or that doesn't sound, that makes
That-
me,
okay.
I feel icky when you say that. Or I don't think that's the real
Yeah.
question. Or,
yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
so you're not going to psychoanalyze me. We've been through all these situations with people we're close to, people, is that really what you want?
Right.
To get me
So
annoyed?
so the part of the thing, there's a whole game that goes on with this whole communication. There's a lot of words that are said. They're not really what they mean,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things that you want. They're not really what you want, but they're said that like you want them. And so you've got this little chaos that goes on that creates the drama that happens between people. And for some people, they like the drama, but for those of us who are saying, I think I'm done with drama, I want to move on, then you have to, this is what we're talking about, is how to sort this stuff out. And so one of the things is like, how do you deal with, okay, you want to go to the movies,
Mhm.
and you want to go see
Blade Runner. for
whatever it is, yeah.
instance. Whatever you want.
And then, or like Tom's always asked me, you want to go out for dinner? It's like, no.
So how do you say that?
And and so I mean, so what if it's the other way around? What if you want to go out to dinner or you want to go do something and they say, oh, I don't want to do that. Yuck. So how do you deal with that rejection or that denial? I mean, it's like, okay.
Sometimes, another question.
Yeah.
Or saying, okay, is there something, I'd like to spend some time with you,
Right.
not sitting around the house. What do you think you'd like to do?
So this is like taking the question and going deeper and saying, okay, what's underlying why I asked this? And so then, and what I found in my communications with people, especially with my partner, is the more honest and from the heart I get, the more he'll listen and respond positively. Because if I just say, oh, well, I want this or I want that, he just kind of like turns off, goes back to watching TV. But, if I sit down next to him and I say, hey, look, I'm really concerned about whatever, and this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm worried about. And he takes that in. And then he acts on it.
Mhm.
It's much more effective.
And for people who aren't as verbal, this whole asking for what you want can show up very differently.
They won't ask for what they want if they aren't verbal.
Well, and the thing is, if they're not verbal, there are other ways that people, some people speak more, people use fewer words.
Yeah.
And Elaine and I both, we're in for the words, But,
That's the
you know,
error.
yes, but there are people who, the words, like after the first 3 words are gone. Or
Yeah.
people don't say words until they have the specific thing to say or do.
Right.
People respond with their body language, or they
Right.
hold back their words, and you can see them, if you pause, you can see them processing,
Mm-hmm.
you can see them getting stressed, and that's another thing we have to ask, what we want out of that situation, is it our job to say, oh, no, don't get stressed,
Mm-hmm.
or is it just our job to let it sit with them
That
and let
is
them
a
deal
hard
with it
one.
the way they want to?
That is so hard because here we are. We're givers. You know, we care about people. We don't want people unhappy.
Mhm.
And so here this
We
whole thing
s-
about selling their business has put my partner in total stress, which has put me in total stress. So, but it's like, what do? This is what I want.
Mhm.
It's not what he wants. It's not what the other people that are involved want, but it's what I want. So how do you deal with that?
And sometimes you have to let people travel their own path of hurt, pain, anxiety, mistrust. Look at when relationships break up.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody does it because it's fun to break up relationships. And most of us, before we end a relationship, go through a lot of our own inner questing.
Right. Feeling
But
guilty.
should we not do it all things being equal, simply because the other person is not yet
Would
comfortable
get
with
their
it.
feelings hurt or whatever.
And ultimately, we're each responsible
Mm-hmm.
for ourselves, getting and doing what we want, and taking, you know, we have, all of us have enough of our own baggage, our own background about what judgments we make about what we want, and
Mhm.
whether it's right or wrong, or good or bad, or up or down.
Right.
And that's what we have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Others, we have to allow others and trust others to deal with what they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy, but I think when we come from that place of kindness as opposed to being right,
Right.
say, you know, and kindness to ourselves, we always forget that part.
Mhm.
Being kind to ourselves, recognizing we do have needs, we have desires, we have wants.
And we're just as valuable as all the people that we want to help.
Mhm.
That's a hard one to remember,
Yeah.
but it's important, because what happens is our bodies, if we keep ignoring them, it's like, you know, it's like you've heard the saying, energy goes where you put your attention. Well, if we don't give our body some attention, our energy kind of just keeps dissipating, and pretty soon there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we put ourselves first, which is so hard, because then you're being selfish.
She was self-judging, if you didn't notice that. She was doing a little self-judgment. But on the other hand, there are so many opportunities we have. We want relationship,
Yeah.
and we want relationships to varying degrees. Some we
Yeah.
really want, some it's like, well, you know, whatever, however it works out, that's fine. And some of those, I find, when it's like, well, I'm getting to know someone, and I'm not sure where it's going, and neighbors, things like that, those are given their own time to,
I don't miss. Oh.
those are given their own time to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas sometimes when we're in relationship with someone, especially a very personal relationship, we have it all figured out, and the evolution has stopped because we've got it all figured out.
We think.
So sometimes when we give, that's part of what we're doing. It doesn't take away from us.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're not always putting ourselves first, sometimes giving is part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And to acknowledge that, but not to make it a habit, and do it just because it's a habit.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's like there's no cut and dried.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hard and fast rules. So if we could give you a few suggestions, maybe on to help you be able to have what it takes to ask for what you want, truly ask for what you want. I'd like to suggest and invite you to, first of all, get to know what it is. I mean, it's more superficial. I mean, it's like, okay, we got real simple things like, well, what do you want for dinner? Well, that's kind of more superficial. But when you're looking for a larger life experience, you know, you have to find out, well, what is it that this is going to really, what's beneath this? What's it going to give me on a more core level? And the other question is, how does it feel? How does it match up with who I am, the way I'm designed? I mean, whether this fits in with me, or if it's just something that's totally harebrained and doesn't fit me at all, because that's all going to help. It's all going to affect how you go about presenting it, because half of the presenting is in the words, the other half of the presenting is in the energy that you give off, transmit as you work through this whole thing. Because the words are kind of like they're sort of like the last thing that someone hears. I mean, you know, people are reading energy all the time.
So I hear what you're saying is resonating with what Helen Palmer was saying today also about the horizontal life we live is the external life,
Mm-hmm.
the everyday life that we're pretty adept at. And the vertical life is the important things that we really need to like center ourselves before we engage or as we're engaging. So one of the recommendations can be, don't sweat everything, don't sweat the small stuff, but take note in yourself of what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Take a breath. Feel your body around you, feel yourself inside your body in your energy, and surrender to the energy instead of the results for
Mhm.
things that are important. when you want to be in touch with yourself, when you want to share authentically with someone, when there's a difficult situation, when you want to stop the friggin' argument.
Right.
You know, instead of just saying, stop, say, okay, take a breath, and just let it
And-
be.
yeah.
And the argument might just fizzle because the energy isn't feeding the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Might still continue. I'm not, no guarantees here. But that's one of the things to not, to, I hate to say choose your battles, because we're always using those
Right.
analogies.
But it's to be discerning.
Be discerning about
Yeah.
where you want to put, and pretty soon, I mean, and it does work exponentially, pretty soon, that discernment leads you to not having to put as much energy
Mm-hmm.
into any one thing, and everything snowballing to be
Right.
more manageable.
Right. Well, and then I've been listening to Sonia Choquette, and she talks about one of her practices is that to get out of your head, because usually our head's the one that's causing all the trouble, and just to notice and identify and label everything around you in your environment for, like 10 minutes, and then that usually will get you out of your head and back into your body so you can connect with what is your truth. And then she was saying, like, if you did that for 10 minutes, just like you say, well, there's the table, and there's a chair, and there's a cup on the table, and it's half full, and, you identify all these things, and the more you can identify them, it's like there's the table has a leaf on it, and I just all the things in your environment, or go out for a walk and notice everything that you're noticing, as you walk, and identify it. It's an exercise. It's kind of a mental exercise, but it calms your mind down. It sort of gets you out of there, gets you out of whatever state it is, and you can feel in your body, body will sort of like settle and feel more grounded, and the whole goal is put you in the present moment, because when we're in an argument, we're busy, our mind's busy racing ahead. Oh, what am I going to say? Oh, well, no, or if somebody says something that you take offense to, you've got the walls up and you're busy thinking about that, and you're not in the present moment. So the whole idea is to be in the present moment, and then from that place of centeredness, you can come up with, what is it I really want? What is it that's driving me to ask for what I want?
Yeah, being present with our presence,
Yeah.
authentic presence in the present. So that, and one of the things that we also said is sometimes we come from a place that is guided by our past,
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that we've built who we are. And when we're doing this kind of work, where we really want to be more present, there's not a lot of room for that part of our past.
But it's kind of like automatically there, so we have to be
So we have to develop,
conscious
remember when we
of it.
talked about the ruts, the patterns,
Yeah.
the habitual
The
patterns in our
neural
brains, neural pathways?
Yeah.
We have to develop new ones.
Yeah.
And so allow yourself to be different. You don't have to be the same person you always were.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you are at your core.
Right.
But for how long have many of us been our authentic selves from our core? We've been pleasing everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
It's a survival mechanism to please everyone else.
so to be in the present, there's no single guide to it,
No.
but to breathe, to feel your body, to take time, to pause. Just push
Yeah.
the pause button. The world can continue going on, but we don't have to. I don't
Right.
have to continue going on at the pace of the world. And it's so easy to want the last word,
Mm-hmm.
to want to fix that. And it's like, what about that? Take a breath.
Or to push for what you want. I mean, it's like, I'm going to have this no matter what.
And usually when we do that, it's not really what we want.
I know, it's our egos involved. So, yeah. So I hope this has given you some insight and some new things to think about. And of course, what's at the root of all this is it's like knowing who you are, because you can't really ask for what you want without knowing who you are. Like for me, what I want is more of a honest path of spiritual growth to live out my destiny, and someone else may want to build a house. There's all different ways, and so if you understand the essence of who you are and what your soul came here to do, and to learn and experience, well then that makes it easier, because then you have a framework to say, okay, well I want to do this, and it's like, okay, well how does it feel? And then when you bounce that back against your framework, and you see that, I mean, that it lines up, it either lines up really well, or you kind of like, there's a little dissonance there, you know, you can notice that. And you can still go ahead and do it anyway. And sometimes that's the best thing to do, because then you learn.
Yep, everything's a learning
So,
experience.
yeah, there's no
everything.
bad mistake, I mean, there's no mistakes. So even if something seems like, appears to be bad, it's always a lesson. There's always a blessing in it. But, you know, the more you know about yourself and your nature, you know, it's like, you know, you need to move, you know, you need quiet time, or whatever it is. Everyone's different.
But the more you're open to that, the more you can see the blessings
Right.
in things, instead of decrying what's wrong, instead of getting in arguments, instead
Right.
of, because none of those are really what we want.
Right.
Wanting to be right, what, you know, that is, I don't think many of us have that as our goal.
We act that way, but
I know, but it's
not really, when
it's
you
not a real
stop.
goal. I mean,
Yeah.
really.
and it's like, and it's all, because I've been in that just recently, and I was like, darn it, I'm right. You know, and it's like, no, wait a minute, you know, I mean, maybe I am right, but that person has that experience, and that's their experience, so maybe I should just chill out.
And
just,
does it matter?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Does it matter? Is the kindness of the relationship more important to come away with,
Right. Is
or a
it better-
feeling that each person feels that they're right and there's no relationship there?
and their separation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's another part of the equation is the communication. That it's like, is it bringing you closer together, or is it creating separation? So we will leave you with those wonderful
Yes,
thoughts.
and leave messages, leave
Yeah.
comments. We love to have this conversation go
And if
on
there's
and on and
something-
on.
If you want us to talk about, just let us know. We love to talk about
We
things.
do. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.